Bahrain, 2020. Obviously, where else was this going to start? Haas Formula 1 driver Romain Grosjean has just been told at the end of the season he won't be Formula 1ing anymore. That meant the season closer in Abu Dhabi would be the Frenchman's last foray into the top level of single-seater motorsport. But as we all know, fate had other plans. How Grosjean escaped this with relatively minor injuries is still put down by many to divine intervention, but even so, the burns on his hands led to this being a premature end to his Formula 1 career. Though, strangely enough, the horror crash had its upsides. For Formula 1, it finally told the last remaining Halo haters to take their opinions and shove them up Nikita Mazepin's asshole. And for Grosjean, well, he started to become liked. Okay, maybe that's a bit harsh, but Romain's Formula 1 career was filled with controversy, be it his antics during his first full season, where driving for Lotus he spent the year accumulating a lap 1 kill streak, and then even in that 2020 season, where his driving standards were once again being called into question. The Bahrain Fireball and Grosjean's Phoenix nickname that followed suit led to the Frenchman becoming far more popular and marketable in the motorsport world. And whilst his time in Formula 1 was now over, that didn't spell the end to his single-seater career. February 3rd, 2021, and Romain Grosjean is announced as the latest entry in that year's IndyCar Championship, partnering up with Delcoin Racing for the forthcoming season. This, looking back, was an excellent move. Delcoin were a solid team in the series, and whilst they might not have the pace to consistently challenge at the front, that gave Grosjean time to settle into a new championship and learn the ropes of IndyCar. And I say they couldn't challenge at the front, though it didn't seem like Grosjean got that memo. Round 5 of the season would take the series to its home at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and whilst it was the 5th race of the season, it was only Grosjean's 3rd, having initially agreed to step away from the ovals given European drivers are scared of literally driving in a circle for some reason. Regardless, that meant it had been almost a month since Grosjean last sat in the number 51 entry, though come qualifying, it didn't look like that. Grosjean took his Delcoin racing car to pole position, and whilst he could only manage second on race day, the man previously used to picking up the pieces in Formula 1 had stamped down his authority in IndyCar. 2 further podiums would follow, and now Romain was attracting the attention from the bigger teams, most notably Andretti Autosport. You see, around this time, the driver of Andretti's number 28 Honda, 2012 series champion Ryan Hunter-Reay, was having a bit of a problem, in the sense that it seemed he'd forgotten how to drive. His results degraded year on year, and by the time 2021 rolled around, he'd managed just 3 top 10 finishes over the whole season. For Andretti, that meant it was time for change, and Grosjean was the ideal candidate. 2022 then would see a step up in the pressure put on the Frenchman. I don't think anyone was expecting wins out of the gate, but more podiums would be a bare minimum for Romain. Things started well with a 5th place at St. Pete, and then got even better at Long Beach, where Grosjean found himself in a legitimate fight for the win. With 5 laps to go, the number 28 found itself on the rear of Joseph Newgarden, and with an advantage on push to pass, the Andretti driver looked like he may just pick up his first win in the series. However, Takuma Sato, using the Long Beach wall as a trampoline, stunted any real effort. That said, that first win appeared to be just a matter of time away. Problem was, this Long Beach race turned out to be a momentary high in an overall disappointing season. You see, besides a P4 at Road America, the year was full of bad luck, and even removing that, nothing to write home about. Romain ending it only 2 places higher in the standings compared to 2021, and remember he sat out of 3 races that season. Heading into 2023 then, and the final year of Grosjean's contract, and it was time for all that promise shown in Romain's rookie outings to come to fruition, and initially, it looked like they were. St. Petersburg, round 1 of the season, pole position. Okay, that was probably helped by Kirkwood and McLaughlin not remembering what brakes are, but to finish first you have to finish and all that bullshit. Come the race, despite all manner of chaos unfolding behind, Grosjean was holding his own in an intense fight with the Penske of Scott McLaughlin. The battle was going down to the wire until Scotty Mac threw his toys out the pram and wiped both cars out of the race. Round 2 at the Texas Motor Speedway was going to be a challenge for Romain to bounce back, with ovals rarely being his strong suit. That said, with 2 laps remaining, the DHL Honda found itself running competitively in the top 5. Actually, never mind that. With Grosjean's championship ambitions now shifting to just managing to cross the finish line, he could at least take solace in the fact that round 3 would take Indy back to Long Beach, home to his best finish from the 2022 season. Unfortunately, history was set to repeat itself once again, as the number 28 was forced to settle for second behind new teammate Kyle Kirkwood. The first podium of the year, however, thrust Romain into the championship fight, and given by this stage in the season he'd shown some remarkable consistency, that breakthrough win seemed like it was just a stone's throw away again. Grosjean backed this assumption up with a second P1 award at the next round at Barber Motorsports Park, and once again we got a sensational duel between himself and McLaughlin, one that this time didn't end in the IndyCar equivalent of Hiroshima. Grosjean would just miss out though. Despite defending tooth and nail in the second half of the race, the Thirsty Threes just had a better race car at the end of the day. For Romain, however, the situation must have been frustrating, and we got our first indications of this bubbling to the surface. At least next on the schedule would be the home of Grosjean's first pole at Indy. However, it would also be the start of where things began to go horribly wrong. The 28 car didn't seem to have pace to begin with, and then when Grosjean failed to even make it to the fast 12, well, fair to say the Frenchman wasn't very happy. On the bright side, Grosjean was finally able to pass McLaughlin on a Sunday, though rather than it being for the lead, it was just for 14th, as he cruised home for a P11 finish. At the time, we thought this was just a momentary blip. However, now, as I record this ahead of the season finale, looking back, Grosjean was only able to better this finish once in the remaining rounds of the season. The calamities continued at the Indy 500, where after another unimpressive qualifying, Grosjean remembered that he was racing on an oval, and so it was his God-given duty to pin his Andretti in the wall. The new Detroit layout was next, and Grosjean was back in the top 10, before yet another unforced error saw the Frenchman retire with just 20 laps to go. At this point, the talk in the paddock had gone from Grosjean being a championship contender to someone who might actually be at risk of losing his Andretti drive come the end of the year. And if that's a rumour Romain wanted to quell early, he didn't do a fantastic job of it come the next round at Road America. The living nightmare began in practice, where Romain made it clear that if he was to lose his seat at Andretti, there was no chance he'd be getting one at Penske for 2024. Will Power threatened to punch Romain in the face after this, though Scott Dixon soon displaced the Frenchman at the top of Power's hit list. Grosjean's antics, meanwhile, continued into qualifying, where he took the 28 for a vacation in the gravel early into the session. After ending said session in his now favourite position of 19th, all whilst teammate Colton Herta took pole, Romain decided why bother waiting till the final laps to crash when I can do it as early as lap 12. What was most painful for Grosjean fans here though was that he was still somehow in the race, meaning they had to put up with this top tier driving display for the next 2 hours. The Mid-Ohio round was a somewhat quiet race for the Frenchman, though that doesn't mean it was much better. P14 in quali, P13 in the race, though luckily for him, Colton Herta took the crown of most incompetent Andretti driver on Sunday. Grosjean was still more than happy to take that title back when IndyCar ventured over to Canada for round 10 in Toronto. Yet another DNF, though in Romain's defence this was allegedly a problem with the car. Jury's still out as to whether the problem had something to do with the man sat in it. Grosjean's critics were really ramping up the heat at this point, though the Frenchman would shock the world at Iowa when he managed to finish an oval race not once, but twice. He still had no pace though. Nashville at least would see Grosjean's best performance since his pair of podiums earlier in the year, and at a time where silly season rumours were coming to their peak, it was important for him to show not just Andretti, but the whole grid what he could do in a race car. P6 in the race was a solid result he could bounce off of. Problem is, he didn't really do that. As IndyCar returned to the IMS road course, Grosjean's qualifying seemed to improve. P6 ahead of all of his teammates, besides the GOAT here, but let's be honest, Di Francesco was driving under the power of Jesus that weekend, so we'll let it slip for once. Despite getting into the fast 6, Romain's race wouldn't go the same way, as he slipped further and further down the field on Sunday, crossing the line in 18th. Another underwhelming performance at Gateway followed after, and Grosjean would hit new heights when he was wiped out of the opening lap in Portland 1 week later. Whilst this latest accident was by no measure the Frenchman's fault, realistically he shouldn't have been this far back to be in that position anyway. And by this stage, Andretti was sick and tired as well, announcing Marcus Ericsson's appointment to the team amid rising tensions between Grosjean and his 28 crew. It's a shame really, given the potential and promise Romain showed, especially at the start of the year, though when we look back at all the unforced errors, you can kinda see why Andretti have made the change for 2024. Now, I'm no psychologist, I'm just a YouTuber who likes to take the piss on the internet, but if you ask me, the turning point was the nightmare weekend at Road America. Things had certainly been bubbling up to that point, but the number of mistakes and errors that weekend, I think, just threw Grosjean. Add that with the mounting pressure and overall expectation for that first win, and I just think he began to overdrive that car, leading us to the situation we're all in now. Romain may well remain in IndyCar if the rumours of him reuniting with Dale Coyne are true, and maybe that's what the Frenchman needs at the end of the day, an opportunity to reset slightly lower down the grid. He will become my public enemy number one though if that means Stingray doesn't secure a ride for next year. We'll see how he does at the final round at Laguna Seca, and actually now I've made this video, watch him go on to win or something. But I'm interested to hear your thoughts on the matter down below in the comments, and whether you think Romain deserves a spot somewhere else on the IndyCar grid for 2024. Whilst you're at it, if you enjoyed the video, I'd really appreciate it if you left a like and got subscribed if you haven't already. I'm trying to get as close to 100k as I can before the end of the year, so if you can help me get that little bit closer to the milestone, I'd be super thankful. A huge cheers goes out to all my patrons and channel members as well. They get early access to some of my videos, including this one, so if you're interested in that or just supporting me in the channel, then you can find out more through the links in the description down below. For now though, that's all from me, so I'll see you very soon with another video, but until then, have a good one.